over at the hotel. The building is still standing and nothing's on fire, so that's really good. To the students, I just want to say thank you again very, very much. It's been a privilege to meet you and to share music with you. And I can't thank Dr. Carmichael and Dr. McCutcheon enough for allowing me to do this. It is now my privilege to welcome to the stage Dr. Richard Miles.
Thank you very much. Very famous work, a trilogy of composers. Gustav Holst, Ralph Vaughan Williams, and then Gordon Jacob, and a delightful contribution of women in literature so significant to the repertoire. And that's just a delicious march, a part of that suite. This next piece is entitled Ammerland. It's by a composer from the Netherlands. And it's a pictorial sound essay of this beautiful place in the north corner of Germany. Top of the mountain range, looking down in the valley. One of those beautiful places in the world for me and for some of you who've been to Chamonix and you've seen that beautiful pictorial, just lovely land. This area of the country in Germany is absolutely stunningly beautiful. This huge lake. For me, this is a journey of a person who has missed their homeland. And the opportunity to go back and to revisit and just to see it in the sight, and all of a sudden to arrive at home is a really grand feeling. Ammerland. Eastman School of Music. At age 47, he actually was hired there to be the assistant administrator and continued to work until he actually, for 40 or more years, actually was the principal administrator of the Eastman School of Music, composer of a high level. He earned a Pulitzer Prize for composition. We band directors decided that we wanted this level of composer writing wind band literature. We commissioned him through one of our principal associations to do a piece for wind band, and this is perhaps his most notable piece for wind band, Chorale and Alleluia. It's on most state assessment charts as we do concert events and festivals. And it's in two parts. This is beautiful chorale, and then all of a sudden, there's this little 5-note motive, that's the Alleluia. And in such a clever manner, he takes two themes and this little motive and repeats it 83 times to create a really beautiful composition. Chorale and Alleluia, Howard Hanson.
There's a few close-ups.
This next piece is a wonderful cultural experience for us. Jay Chattaway, another American composer for wind band. He was a band director. He was a composition student. And he became quite successful in the composition area. And he went on to be asked to come in at a last minute and to compose the music because it had failed for Star Wars, The Next Generation. And he had a one-day notice, and he had to write the entire first episode overnight and record it with no rehearsal. And he started a great track of stardom from his phenomenal contribution. This particular piece, Mazama, is by this composer, Jay Chattaway. He was commissioned by more than 20 schools to do a piece in honor of the Northwest Indians in the really top part of that Oregon area. Now, the story of Mazama is a legend, but it is a true story that has been passed down through generation. The Mazama Indians were a very, very prominent and dignified American Indian tribe, and there had been a huge volcano eruption. And the volcano eruption eliminated everyone in the entire tribe, with the exception of a handful of persons. And so he was asked, because several of the persons were still from the Mazama area, and would it be possible that in honor we could do a composition? So he did. Several years ago, I was invited to go to Colombia, South America, for Yamaha instruments. So I flew into Bogota, took me on a little train to a little town in Manizales. And in Manizales, I hopped on another little cart, and I went up into the mountains in a real distant, very, very rural place. And there in Villa Maria was a little band that was the championship band all of Colombia. There are 250 phenomenal bands in Colombia, all sponsored by the government. Instruments paid for, music paid for. So I went into the rehearsal and I was asked to come and conduct. And they said, Dr. Miles, could you bring a couple of pieces that would represent some American music and some cultural things? And I said, yeah, I'll do that. I'll bring Mazama. So I passed out Mazama. And I was talking about it. And I speak Spanish a little. And I was describing Mazama about the Northwest. And all of a sudden, I noticed these students with tears coming down their eyes. And I thought, oh man, what did I say? And one little girl that was so tiny, her feet didn't hit the floor, she just stood up. And of course, everything there is open air. And she just pointed. And I turned around and I looked at half of a mountain. And just a few years earlier, that volcano had erupted and eliminated all of her family and most of the students in their group's family. The hard tug of the story is they too were Mazamas. So an homage of the highest level. It was so great on the next Saturday night. The entire crowd, every single person from all of the little carts came into town. They all circled for the band to play Mazama. It was such a wonderful. We hope you enjoy this cultural experience, which is a homage to Mazama. Making it possible that educational events like this can take place. I often think of why we have music in the schools, and everybody talks about that, but my perspective is a little different. I have two children that are not professional musicians. They didn't major in music. I have a son that's a mechanical engineer, and I have a daughter who runs a big box store. And I shop there sometimes. But they were both in music. And here's what they took away. An appreciation of, a participation in, and a loving of the passion of life and the passion of music. They are better people today because of that experience in music. And I encourage every student here, that instrument does not go in a case. It does not collect dust underneath a bed when they go to college. It is a gift of intelligence that they need to share. I thank you again, Dr. Carmichael. Remarkable to find these organized run events that could possibly be anywhere. Now, I don't know how they did it because they had a home football game and basketball band events and everything was going on. It's remarkable. I don't have the ability to think that well, to do that, but congratulations to you. Who doesn't know the story of Harold Hill and the Music Man? Harold Hill came into the town in Iowa. He was a con man. He was there to get a band started, sell instruments, and sell uniforms, and make money and live in town as a rich man. And he walked into Mason City, Iowa. We got a problem in Mason City. And you got to get a band to get these students off the street and do it all. And so, boy, he just got the town council to buy instruments and uniforms, and all of a sudden, Harold Hill fell in love with
Marion, the librarian.
And Harold Hill's life changed, just like ours. And that's the story of the Music Man. Then he gave back and had a band in our own word. And there's a huge lesson in life with all of that. We hope you enjoy. And I think these young ladies and gentlemen who have demonstrated their scholarship and their intelligence this weekend. Thank you.